Negus.
Negus. What is the language of origin?
Ethiopian to Amharic.
What is the definition?
A king. It's used as a title of the sovereign of Ethiopia. Negus.
Negus. Could you use it in a sentence?
The Negus ruled Ethiopia until the coup of 1974.
Negus. Negus.
Andrew, would you say the word loudly for the judges?
Negus.
One more time.
Negus.
Negus.
Negus. N-E-G-U-S. Negus.
My nigga. May I have your attention for a very important public service announcement. We are taking over the internet, and the United States champion of word wrestling entertainment has returned for another edition of the Pocket Locker podcast. I am your host with the most, all the way from the East Coast. And as always, folks, I am in airplane mode. Y'all already know what time it is. Grab something to drink, grab something to smoke, greet your neighbors, link up with the gang, and catch a vibe. It is time to jump into the musical portion of the program.
That's all right.
Cheers, gang. You may drink.
Honey, honey, I can see the stars all the way from here. Can't you see the glow on the window pane? I can feel the sun whenever you're near. Every time you touch me, I just melt away.
All right, let's give out some pocket change. Carrie Ann Chrysler was first.
'Cause I know nothing's perfect, but it's worth it after crying through my tears. And finally you put me first. Honey, it's you. You're the one that I love.
Logan Fisher was second, 5,000 pocket change.
You're the one I see. Come on, baby, it's you. You're the one that lifts me up. You're the one I can always call when I need to make everything stop. Finally, you put my love on top.
And Nitty was third, 2,500 pocket change. What's up, bro?
Baby, baby, I can feel the wind whipping past my face as we dance the night away. Girl, your lips taste like an ice.
We got Carrie Ann in the house, Logan's in the house, and Nitty's in the house. Wayne is in the house. It's good to see y'all. Unable to find Nitty. Mind about you tripping today, bro.
Finally, you put me first. Honey, it's you. You're the one I love. You're the one I need. You're the one I see. Come on, baby, it's you. You're the one that lifts me up.
this so much.
You're the only one I see.
That pocket is so deep.
You're the one that lifts me up.
You ain't know what a pocket is. You're gonna learn today.
When I need to make everything stop. Finally, you put my life on jump. Baby, you're the one that I love.
Everybody do the key change.
You're the only one I see. Come on, baby, it's you. You're the one that lifts me up. You're the one I can always call when I need to make everything stop.
All right, y'all. We gonna do one more. I wanna get all the way in the groove. We got a very important topic we're gonna be discussing today. I want everybody in the right frame of mind. What are y'all doing over here? What is this? Why have we never seen that? Why have we never seen that before? What was that? Oh, bonus material for the early crowd. That was so good. That was the most random thing I've seen on the internet. What was that? This one is for my grown folks. You gotta be grown to remember, to know about this song right here. All the kids know about the samples, the covers. Nah, this the OG.
If a man has a place in his heart, there's a space, and the world can't erase fantasies. Take a ride in the sky on a ship that's aside. All your dreams will come true right away, and we will live together until the 12 of never. Our voices.
Yeah, Carrie Ann, that was one for the blooper reels for sure.
There's one. Every fight is a dream. Rush on by in the stream. Bring alive to the kingdom of blue. Take a ride in the sky on a ship that's aside. All your dreams will come true miles away. Our voices
Mosul is in the house.
together until the 12 of
Good to see you.
we all will live forever as one.
They are fantastic. And they brought the whole band.
Bring your mind to everlasting liberty.
Carrie Ann said nope. Just that one character. Carrie Ann, you gotta hop and gather. I got something to chat with you about. Fuck yeah. Oh, y'all forgot to change the logo. Look at me. There we go. Okay. Somebody stayed late in chorus class. She did the extra assignment. Honors option. I see you. Phenomenal. All right, gang, we're gonna try to keep it weeknight tight up in here. Speaking of honors optional real quick, I had a student today who did an honors option in the last little class from my lab class. He put a beautiful cap on the semester, did a presentation about the how just like how digital organisms are a unique instance of evolution, so is the evolution of languages. I was so proud today, y'all. It's so funny too as a teacher because the students, they just do like this crazy work, and yeah, you help them out, but it's really them. But you do get that feeling like you really did something. It's kind of awesome, actually. All right, but look, today we are getting to the meat and potatoes of the whole thing, y'all. The whole, like, we spend so much time. Oh my God. Think about all the time we'll never get back, y'all. Just be out here just debating the bullshit, y'all. Y'all know we do. Y'all know we do. We be talking about the philosophy and the history and what's your morality and the world views and the blase and the glavinoids. And we know none of that shit matters. I'm sorry. I love y'all. I'm out here hard. Y'all are out here hard. We out here in these YouTube streets, okay? But we got to be real honest with ourselves. Not a single one of those debates ever reflects the reason anybody is actually a goddamn Christian or actually a believer. But that's not going to be the case on today's show. Nope. Because today we're going to talk about the reason I think people are actually believers. We're going to talk about, tell me what it's really about. Tell me what it's really about, y'all, okay? And that is community. Yeah. And it's so interesting too, because I feel it in my chest, y'all. Like, that's right. When we really had a conversation at the end of the day, like, what's keeping somebody in the faith? Like, what is it really about? Why are you really in this cult? Come on, like, stop playing with me. Why are you really? Come on, you too grown to be believing this foolishness. Okay, it always comes down to community at the end of the day, and we got to start to think about, like, what does that really say about it all? And it kind of, like everything, like, we're gonna have some fun, but there's always like a little bit of serious nuance to it. Like, the thing that for me is so interesting about it is it's incredibly powerful, right? So you should already be feeling the tension in the room, right? Like, there's that sense of community that's never gonna make the thing true, right? But how many of us, like, that's what kept us in it for so long, right? And that's what made it hard to really leave. And to be honest, that's what's hard even in your life after, right? Even trying to find community now as non-believers, like, that's still such a huge issue. So I like to think that for a lot of us, our sense of community was established in the church or in a religious family coming up, and kind of, leaving that community or no longer believing those things anymore is certainly a reflection of us having to live our truth, right? But at the same time, it came with some consequences. And when we start talking about that sense of community, for most of us, that was the biggest consequence. So I'm very excited about that. Let's go ahead and get into it. I'm sure it's going to be a lot to say, so we're going to get right on into it. All right. I gotta, me and Uncle Bobby, I think, are working on potentially moving the blackout to during the week. So I got to make sure I stay in tip-top shape and know what I'm doing out here. So we gotta go ahead. Let's hit it with the Autobots in the transform. Then we got to roll out. Yep. Up. Look, we already blow uptuated. We're blow. Look, see that's not blow uptuated. That's blow uptuated. Let's roll the tape.
If the biggest takeaway for the Christian in their religion is community, this man-made created thing that makes them feel good, that the lack of that community would lead people to leaving the church, I think that is saying something extremely telling about the lack of the supernatural within the church.
Hey,
If you
YouTube
settled
punk, hey,
long
Lena.
ago for, well, Christianity works because look at this community, because all of God's
They
bigger
are.
claims didn't pan out, I think that the end result is obvious. This religion is like all of the others. It's a group of people seeking benefit, seeking good feeling, regardless of the truth of the situation. They may very well believe, but their belief has not equaled what was promised. And instead of calling the promise maker on the bad promise, they blame leadership or each other or sin or the devil. A whole lot of feelings for something that's supposed to be about the objective truth of Christ.
Come on, y'all. How many people do you know, like from work, around town, however, whatever it is, right? And they've been in this faithful for years, their whole life. And when they really get to telling you why you need to check out this church, it's because the sense of the community's so great. Oh, I just love the community. When you challenge them, like that's it. Like that's the real thing. And why does nobody ever talk about that? That it's really just about this community, this sense of belonging, this sense of identity. Okay. And I'm gonna just say off the top, it works. Like a lot of y'all know, like I played as the worship drummer for a church for a long time, even as a non-believer, right? And even though I was like volunteering and put a ton of time into it, it was worth it, right? Because I love the community. The people were great. I had a ton of fun with them. It was awesome, and I miss that. So like you don't even have to necessarily believe, but it's a very powerful thing to just I would always say like you're known by like a lot of people, like a large group of people. They kind of, you have a lot of people to check in with. You have a lot of people. There's always something fun. You have a lot of people to do things with. So it's super important. And it's a really serious pull. But at the same time, like it shouldn't be counted as a benefit to an organization if that sense of community is really a hook, if it's really just part of the coercion, the PR, right, of getting you into something that is having negative consequences. Like that's my issue now, right, is that we've somehow gotten people to a point where I don't want to say it's just community, because I think there's a lot of personal individual benefits people get out of it, but there's certainly a large element of that. But I think that we're allowing that to become like a shield, like a reason we're not challenging people, or a reason we don't want to like, be more vocal about our opposition to the church and things like that, because we feel like we're going to challenge somebody's identity or challenge their sense of belonging in this community. But think about if we put that in the context of any other problematic organization. Like if somebody was like, yeah, well, I know people say the Oath Keepers are racist, but like, oh, like we have these unbelievable cookouts and the hot dogs, they're just the best, and the band is just amazing, and we all wear the same thing, and we sing songs, and I've just made such really good friends, and they're really right. Like we just like, what are you saying? What are you saying? Like get away from me. Like it's seen as a problem, right? Because it's really like recruiting and stuff like that. So it's more like a source of manipulation, right? And I'm vocalizing this to y'all because this is what we do on this channel, but I haven't figured this out. Like this is the conversation that I feel like I just don't know how to have with the people in my life, right? But that's why I'm so excited about this video, because this is what we really need to be talking about. All right, let's go.
Welcome to Mindshift. I'm Brandon. Today is another Tuesday Takedown video, not of people, typically just of bad ideas, bad arguments, and bad apologetics, although I don't know if today's video fits any of those categories per se. This is a video of an individual, seems like a pastor or a leading pastor at a church, who has given advice to other pastors or church builders. And there were a couple things in it, it's really quick, it's less than a minute, that made me think, and seemed kind of telling. So I want to play this video for you right away, and then let's talk about it.
So we're seeing this incredible movement where small churches are dying by the thousands every month, and fewer churches are becoming bigger and bigger and bigger. People are searching for something that is basic, something that God has put into their heart, and that's the desire for community, and they're not getting it. Now here's the other interesting thing the researchers found. They found that on the vast majority of this 40% of the people who are not going to church, the majority of them, in fact the vast majority, have said they would come back if there was community, if there was connection. So as you're thinking about your church and as you're strategizing what you want to do, as you're setting your values for who you want to be, understand that people want community.
So,
All right, off rip though, like, so true. It really is true. And I feel like the churches that are really, really big and are growing, they're aware of this. Like the church I was part of, you know, everybody's little Bible studies, they were called connection groups, and they were dope because then they became like a community, like within the community. And honestly, a lot of that, I think, we should kind of learn from. So the thing that's powerful for me is the notion of intentional community, right? The idea that the community that you're a part of and the people in your life, it's something you're strategic about. You put effort into it. Like it's not just, oh, we happen to be here existing in the same place. There's something deliberate in trying to be more than that. Now, of course, a lot of times for the church, it's like tied up in their evangelism, but I think we should just see it as one particular type of intentional community, and then, like, you know, use the things that are effective to our own enhancement, so to speak. Like there's certain things that are just beneficial about that. So for instance, the regularity of their meetings, like the fact that, you know, everybody gets together in the same place, even if it's only on Sundays. I've been a part of a GTA motorcycle club for like 5 years or whatever it is now. And one of the amazing things about that club is that we have church. That's what motorcycle clubs call their meetings, where they all sit down and vote on club issues. They call it church. So we have church on Sunday evenings. Most of you guys know that's why Hot program ends on Sunday afternoon when it ends, so I can go to that. And throughout all the different seasons of my life, as I've known these people, that regular interaction is really important, because people are in different time zones, people have different schedules, but that's the way of like checking in and regularly like knowing what's going on in the club, what's going on in the community, what's going on with our recruits, who's getting promoted, what's the latest drama. And then there's something powerful about the relationships that are built because you're just seeing each other with that sort of scheduled regularity that everyone's committed to, at least as best they can. And then you can, you know, schedule like more regular events. So if you're like in a Bible study, that's like having like again, a micro community that also schedules things and schedules activities together. Like my connection group used to, you know, we'd watch games together, we'd have game nights, we'd have nights where we would all like bring over friends and guests to hang out with us and like have dinner and stuff like that. Like it was just a really fun thing to be a part of each other's lives in such a like deliberate way. It also makes certain things pretty cool. Like I remember we had to like move this family. They were like moving houses or whatever, and like pretty much they like sent out a call, like everybody showed up. um and there was this like they moved one big house to like another, but it was like really easy. Like everybody just carried a couple things, ordered a bunch of pizzas, and they were moved in pretty much no time. And there were so many people showed up because we were all just kind of hanging out and kicking it, that nobody really had to do all that much work because it was spread over so many people. There's just there's stuff like that that really happens that like it's totally man-made. We could totally do this and sort of around any other bond or common interest that we have with people, but we don't. And I don't know. I have like really mixed feelings about it, because on one hand it's like, well, maybe there's a reason this is what cults do, right? And things get a little culty at some point. But at the same time, like, there's nothing wrong with people bonding this way and supporting each other in this way. And it's clearly, I think of from a biological way of thinking, or whatever the fuck, that that's it just makes a lot of sense. This is how we survive, is learning how to cooperate in big groups. It's just a shame that we're not so deliberate in other areas of our life. But that's kind of the problem. That's kind of what I'm getting at, is I think that's why it's so hard to make community, because you only learn this and you only kind of do this, or if this is only kind of do this in church, then when you leave church, it's hard to get in with another group of people like this.
This is interesting, and I think it could go many ways. I think I could make a very long video on this, but I'm going to endeavor to make a shorter one because there's just a couple points I want to highlight here. By the way, I don't know if this information, the stats that he is quoting, are super accurate or what study they are from, but it wouldn't surprise me. And I did my own video about 4 months ago, you can check out here, where I did go through some of the new data that is showing a loss of church attendance, as well as the decline in people self-identifying as Christian or believer, etc. And those trends seem to be going in the right direction. And I think there are many factors to that. So check out that video. And for today's video, let's assume that what he's saying is correct. What is the first thing that stood out to me here? Thousands of the small churches are dying. They just cannot keep themselves afloat. And the other churches that typically have turned into bigger churches, mega churches, etc., that's not happening anymore. And the big ones are losing a lot of their members. Now, I mentioned a minute ago, there's many reasons why this is probably happening. I know that a lot of Christians, when they saw kind of the Christian national stuff going on with Trump, they're like, wait a second, this isn't good. I know COVID got a lot of people away from family that was kind of keeping them in the loop or attending their church, and without kind of that weekly indoctrination and that familial guilt, etc., a lot of people found the space to finally really reflect on what they believed and why. I hear that from so many of you in the comments all of the time.
All right. So this is like interesting. These two issues were very important for me, like as like someone who just like couldn't stand the idea of identifying as a Christian any longer. Like, I gotta be honest. I think looking back on it, I think I was talking about how proud I am to not believe that stuff anymore. But in reality, I feel like I held on to that identity as long as I possibly could. And I just remember like growing up and like going through college and learning different things, and like always like folding it into my Christian identity. And it just kind of gradually went from being a believer who, was just kind of thought people believed weird stuff, to like sort of being an unconventional believer, like sort of rationalizing really weird stuff, to then like way out there stuff, to be like, I just don't like like I was a weird Christian at some point, gang. Like, I can't remember, like I wasn't like had gotten rid of biblical literacy, like kind of thought God, you could use God like synonymously with like nature, like all this weird stuff that when I look back on it, it's like not really Christian, to be honest. But I needed it at the time as sort of adaptations of like what it means to be a Christian, so that I could like hang on to that identity. Um, and so much of that was just being absolutely terrified of the way it would change my relationships if I wasn't. Um, so yeah, that's my story. So it's I don't want to sound like I think it's ridiculous that this is what compels people. Matter of fact, like honestly, like I'm into this. I could tell y'all, like when I saw this, I was excited. I've been like up for this podcast much more than usual. I really wish more people would do stuff like this, because this is like an opportunity to actually see a content creator like, make something about community, share some of my thoughts about community, share a little bit more of this part of the journey. And then like, this is what actually matters to believers. Like I can't say that like how often has your mother or grandmother asked you about William Lane Craig in the Kalam cosmological argument? You know what I'm saying? How many times has the historicity of Moses come up over the dinner table? When was the last time your aunt called you and asked you about your axiology of the epistemology, right? What kind of presuppositions are you bringing to this conversation? Right, like this way that we talk in this community, which is, it's kind of sad, right? Because this is like the space where or at least for me, right? So question of the day. That's there's new around here. You just put in that little command, boop, and it's like, how do you find community as a non-believer? For me, this YouTube space was a huge part of that. And I feel like I've made so many friends and great connections with it, but then it's kind of a shame, because it's like I finally have a community of people to talk about these things with, but then we don't really talk about belief in a way that I identify with, right? And I don't think most people do. I kind of almost think it's a distraction. I know a lot of the conversations are interesting, but at some point it feels like a distraction in terms of like getting at what's really keeping people in the faith, right? And sometimes like that's what I want to talk about. And y'all know me. Like I love the understanding and the learning, and y'all know I fucks with me some community building, but I am probably more than most content creators motivated like, okay, but like what do we do about this? Because I am currently in distress about the religious state of not just like my friends and family, but my community and the politics of my country. And so that's what kind of brings me to these issues he brought up right here, because obviously, like with my background as an evolutionary biologist, like dealing with like creationism, for instance, was a factor in like challenging my Christian identity. Like I kind of I've experienced creationists doing bad things, and it made me uncomfortable. I don't know why. It's not like anybody said like, oh, there's this creationist group that's like attacking the researchers here at our science center. So Jay, like, why are you one of them? Like it never was like that. But I think for me it was sort of a like, if people are behaving this way to defend the faith, then what does it say about like what does it say? Like why would they need to do that? And also I felt like I was confronting the issue. Like I know how to put it in words now. I couldn't then, but what I was basically confronted with was the difference between using science and thinking like a scientist. Like there comes a point where I felt like I made the transition from like just being able to be like, oh yeah, the scientific method is something you can do, rather than saying like, no, the fruits of it is it changes the way you think. And if you're actually going to think scientifically, then this isn't consistent with scientific thinking, right? Now, I don't know if that makes sense to you guys, but basically I just realized I had to be more consistent in my actual personal behavior, and I could no longer support an organization that is anti-scientific. But for a lot of people, conversations changed around Trump and around COVID, and I saw that with people in my life who are believers, and it also really affected me as a non-believer. Like they were things that made me like really like, okay, fuck this, we don't have time to play these games anymore. Like, and that's gang, that's the most bluntly I've been able to speak about it in like the whole time. Literally, that's what my mental shift was. It was like, fuck that. We don't have time to play these fucking games anymore. Nope, 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 nope. When the Jesus people got around to electing Donald Trump, nope, nope. Shit's done gone too far. Right? Because the cavalcade of culture wars and bullshit, like it's like literally taking us backwards. All right, I'm gonna nerd out for a little bit, real quick. I don't talk about my research a whole lot on this channel, but my research is actually about historical contingency, basically how what's possible in evolution in the past, right, depends on your history, right? Like we all inherit like certain genetic backgrounds, right? And basically my research just shows like that some possibilities are opened up based on that, and some possibilities are just cut off. But you like can't put the cat back in the bag or whatever. I don't know. Whatever the wordplay is supposed to be there. I don't remember that the turn of phrase there, but that matters to me. Like when you think about things like having, you know, say Trump versus Hillary or something like that. Like we can't ever go back and do that over. And then imagine having like a different person in charge when say like COVID happens, and like having a different response, like more in line with the more forward thinking or efforts at the time of like the European countries or something like that. Like you just can't do that over. And that's historical contingency. It's the way in which, yes, biology is a science, but it's also a historical discipline. Like what's past this prologue in a sense. And so that's what haunts me about this whole thing. Is there's all this like colossal stuff that happens that are like the defining events and situations of our lifetimes. And for some of us, they're truly wake up calls. They're just like, I know, like, do you see what we're living with right now? And but it's weird because again, this came up on Hot Program this Sunday. It was kind of interesting. Me and my one black friend were having a good back and forth, and I was talking about how the struggle with all of this is in mass, like it's such a low probability effort. Like there's such a minuscule chance that whatever happens or whatever conversation that you have with the believer can actually change their mind or influence them. Like, for the most part, doesn't matter what you say, doesn't matter what you do, doesn't matter what happens in the world around us. Christians just want to be Christians. Believers just want to be believers. Like, they're sold out for whatever promises or core outcomes or that they believe they're going to attain. But for those of us that don't believe anymore, you see these things happening and they can change your level of motivation. And for some believers, like, they start to have doubts, they start to question the leadership of the organizations around them and things like that. And you don't know who's who. And so what I'm getting at is it gets so tricky because these things happen. And like, I remember like feeling like this was like going on with people in my family, like they were seeing stuff in their church around Trump and around COVID and like questioning that. And then like I thought, okay, now's the time. Like they're starting to, the writing's on the wall. Like they've got to be having their doubts now. This is the time to like, have conversations about what's really going on with their faith, only to realize they're like not there yet. Right. So, I wish I had a solution to offer, but it's just so interesting that those things come up, and I definitely want to like talk about them because they are things that will sort of forever change the trajectory of the lives of so many people, and they're just generational events. But for some people, they're still not enough. And that's what's so insane to me. Like COVID, for instance, like living through that whole thing where it was so early, it was so scary, but we were getting these like early data points that were like, yeah, people can't get together in big groups. Oh yeah, see this choir, they like got together and they sang at their church and they all, and like a whole bunch, they got sick as shit and a whole bunch of them died. Like, and you could sort of like put the early pieces together and people would like defy the orders just to congregate in mass. Like it was just absolutely terrifying to live through. Right. And it's like scarred me on some level. And I don't even know how to deal with that. But there's sort of this, you're just like realizing that people will die for this stuff. They will like die to prove to us that they're consistent with these beliefs. And yeah, so I feel like, I guess the way to say it is like, these were like cultural litmus tests. And it's surprising to see who jumped off the train. They were like, nope, Trump's too much. Oh no, this COVID shit, this is going way too far. And who lived through that and has gone right back to the church, and is just rolling along.
And obviously,
also good
as
to
the
see you,
number of
Maya and
believers goes
Sumami.
down, so will the number of needed churches. I think
And
it's fascinating to consider in general.
AR, that's
why
my
we-
motto. People who are willing to die for Jesus are willing to lie for Jesus. Don't you forget it.
ever had so many churches or what these churches look like. Like, again, my head is spinning about all the things I want to talk about. If you read the New Testament and you look at what the New Testament church was supposed to be, it was a gathering locally of a small amount, typically of individuals. And the goal of the church was to make disciples. It was not to evangelize or to proselytize. You might prepare people to go out and do so, but it was feeding the flock. And I think that it's so interesting how the modern church already looks so different than the New Testament church. And I don't really care. This is not a critique on Christian churches today, but it does make me wonder if maybe some of it is almost a healthy, from the Christian perspective, getting back to kind of grassroots, home churches, things of this nature, which I think are highly problematic for their own reasons. And by the way, I've been at big churches like mega churches, and I have been at really small and brand new churches, and I have had a good exposure to the home churches, etc. etc. And they all still suffer a lot of the same issues. They still depend on their members to support them, which is an amazing business plan, especially when you already get a tax break for being religious, which is ridiculous to me. You break the agreement that has given you the free taxes by most of the time politicizing your church. You tell people how to think, you tell people how to vote, you indoctrinate the youth, you use shame and guilt and fear as main motivators. You purposely...
All right, pause the tape. So Chris Moore asked, are you mostly afraid that we'll fail the great filter of civilization and fizz out into nothing, or like our self-destruct? No, it's more like I don't know, like I used to have this what seems like naive faith in humanity, that like when shit got real, that when it, you know, you could sort of trust people to snap out of it when we really needed to, and that all that shit people talk about serving others and the greater good and the blase and the glavinoids and the patriotism or the whatevers, that they would take all that seriously enough to understand when, you know, we're called upon to handle our adult responsibilities. And it was like this, it was like, you know, the sort of, I don't know, for some reason I have like, in my mind like a snow globe, like shattering this like bubbled, you know, like I said, naive view of human nature, and realizing that like there's nothing so special about the time, that my lifetime, that is fundamentally altered human nature, right? That like, again, I always like to say that we live in Jetsons times, but these people are trying to take us back to Flintstone era. But in some sense, that's sort of the nature of the beast, because a human generation is 20 years, and you know, we get new iPhones every 18 months or whatever. So the cultural and technological change vastly outpaces, you know, our actual evolution, and we're just, I hate to say this, but we're just not the apes we need to be for a time like this. And it was like realizing that, and that I'm just gonna live my whole life and die, you know, and that's just the nature of the game. But yeah, it was kind of scary, but you're not wrong. Yeah, in a sense, it's like failing. It's like failing the great filter. But it was more like self-motivated than that. Like it was like, I don't think much about the fate of like our species, like or like the you know, like you know, is humanity gonna destroy itself? It was just more like, damn, like I have to live with the consequences of our limits right now.
Hide information in the Bible, or at least selectively choose not to cover it, that would be problematic. You put down other churches that don't agree with you. You talk about how they are wayward, how they don't know the real truth that you and all your members do. You have praise and worship music that is absolutely out of control, no different than a concert, completely focused on feeling and self, as opposed to an actual act of worship. I could go on and on. I'm not sure how we got here. Now we're just talking about all the things wrong with church. Sorry. Again, I watched this video like seconds before I turned on the camera, and I was like, let's see what comes up. So this is what you guys are getting. But what else? What else stood out to me here? The main next point is the desire for community. And that's the thing that I was like, okay, I want to talk about that. You know, he says, okay, first of all, this is a God-given desire, community. And from the scriptures, I would not argue that. We are told that we are made for community, that we are made for fellowship, that we need other Christians around us to be able to call us out, to hold us accountable, to encourage us, to pray for us, etc. So again, a community of believers is very doctrinally sound, and it is also hands down one of the things that modern Christianity does best, the community aspect. That is why it is so hard for so many to leave, because leaving means being typically ostracized in some capacity by that community, which for all intents and purposes was probably your main community. So again, community is something Christians do very, very well, and it works for them. And I'm not even saying it's inherently bad. It leads to bad things because the religion is false. It leads to a appeal to majority. It leads to getting stuck.
All right. Pause tape. He said a couple important things here. So let's start with the end. Like, this is my fundamental opposition to all of it. It's false. And so it's going to lead to bad things because it's false. There's no honest way to defend something that isn't true. And we sort of have allowed the feels, the personal feels, right? And by that I mean like the relationship with Jesus, the sort of inner, whatever a person feels is like the inner change of how they're different because of their faith. We have allowed that, and then I think this sort of sense of community thing to stand in place of reasoning. And it's a problem for me personally, first, foremost, and always, because it isn't true. And it's so easy now for me to hear that, and for people to hear the big, bad, angry atheist who like wants Christians to stop believing. But I need to like always remind myself, and I guess remind you guys, that I think our motivation should start for first be, for a lot of us, we were Christians and we believe this stuff. And we were probably very different people, and we made a lot of our decisions, and we spent a lot of our time and a lot of our resources doing things we would not have done had we not been essentially coerced from a very young age into doing all of those things on behalf of something that's not true. And that difference is so important, y'all. Because in some sense, like, I think that has to be our sort of motivating call to help the people that can't help themselves. Because in any other context, when a person is like coerced into doing something from a young age and can't really make these choices for themselves, and they're in a very high demand group, like, we think that that's a bad thing. And we think it's not a good idea to enable whoever the manipulator or the bad organization is. Like, you protect people from them. But it's almost like this game gets played. It's like this trick. Like when you were a Christian, obviously you couldn't speak out against it because you didn't know any better. But then as soon as you know better, it's like, well, you're a non-believer, so stop picking on these sweet, innocent Christians over here. And it's like, no, I used to be a Christian, and as a Christian who didn't want to live a fucking lie, I want to give other people the opportunity to not live that lie.
Leads to the hurt of when you no longer fit the in-group's ideal. But not every individual Christian is a bad person, and not all of them will ostracize you as soon as you come out, but you 100% lose that community when you leave the faith. This is just a natural byproduct. And it's the number one thing I hear from commenters, I think, about either what took them so long, it's either that or the fear of hell, to actually leave, or why they still haven't left, or what they miss the most. So it rings true to me that a lot of people who aren't going to church anymore are citing the case to be a lack of community at the church. Maybe not as many people are showing up as they used to since COVID, and now it's so easy to stay at home. Maybe there's not as many get-togethers as there used to be. Maybe there's too many churches and everything is spread too thin. There's a lot of different things that can go into this.
All right, gang. I'm gonna silver line something about our post-COVID response here. So get your clippers out, because y'all know I don't have anything positive to say about this situation. But it dawned on me the other day, and again, I think I was just thinking about trying to have more of these conversations about community, because I'm like high risk, so I'm a little salty, right? Like I still live kind of like my like with a lot of isolation, and so it kind of sucks, and I felt for a while like people were like overcompensating, and like none of this is helping us fight COVID. But one of the things I thought the other day is like, maybe I think what's happening with a lot of people is the pandemic made a lot of people realize that, like, hang on a second, I've got I'm getting gather audio. Sorry about that. There's people hanging out backstage and they started talking. All right, so people miss people. And if people are doing more to get connected to other people and stay connected to other people after that, then like that's a natural response. And like I'm trying to get good with it. And the reason it ties to this is because maybe that's part of something that can nudge us in the direction of people not needing religion in church as much. They've had this opportunity. They realized, hey, what I really miss is like hanging out with friends and doing whatever it is they used to do. And now they're getting social again, and so now they're finding community in different areas of their life. Like even now, like I work remotely, so I don't get to like see my colleagues and spend time with them, but I notice all of the things that people are doing to like stay connected and get connected and have social experiences together and do fun things and all that stuff. And I think in some level that needs to be the response. Is we need to. It's a problem if we allow something that isn't true to monopolize the type of community that we need. Like I find it enough to say, how do people seem to feel when they're in these really intentional, like intense communities like they are in church? When it comes to this community aspect, there seems to be this like sort of ubiquitous understanding that it helps people thrive, it makes people feel good. Like I'm cool. All right, I don't need any more. Like you don't have to like write a dissertation on it. Like I'm good saying that this community thing is like really important for people and really helps human thriving. But if the masters of it, who really can give people that jolt of community, remains in these sort of organizations, then that's not good. I think it's better if it's like socialized, if it's like all throughout it, if it's like anything. And I actually am starting to see this now that I'm not a believer. So for instance, I would put the fighting game community up against churches any fucking day of the week. Any fucking day of the week. Church ain't got shit on the fighting game community. But that's because that's another like intentional community that's going to have a lot of the same benefits. Like they have local meetups and local gatherings. They spend a ton of time together on a intentional basis. They travel together. Like, and I can't even play fighting games. I'm terrible at them, but I'm a fan of the culture. And you can get that kind of culture with so many different things. So maybe that change is happening, and maybe that's one sort of good thing that can come of the isolation people felt during COVID, is that they realized that they needed community, sort of in a more broad way than maybe was getting fulfilled, sort of just calling the rest of your life the sort of whatevers, right? Like, oh, there's work, and then I guess there's those, unfortunately there's people at the gym, and then I play a little basketball with the guys and do a little gaming from time to time or whatever. But my community is what I get on church on Sunday, right? And now people are realizing, like, yo, I just missed people. And so they're realizing that all of our lives are social, and so we can infuse community into a lot of different things. That's me being optimistic. All right, let's go back to our regularly scheduled program.
I find really interesting is that it's not about Jesus. The New Testament is clear to be in fellowship, to support a local church, to have a place to give tithes and offerings, to be a disciple and to make disciples, to encourage and sharpen one another, to rebuke one another. This is not like hey, it would be beneficial if, or if you have the right personality type that's extroverted, or you don't have a better plan on a Sunday, or you didn't sleep in, or the kids weren't too cranky, or the game's on, or, all of the things that Christians really have no problem missing church for. So I find it amazing that it's not.
Oh yeah, we were playing hard games on the casino channel. Yeah, we should get back into that. I'm down. We had a ton of fun. There's some people in hard games. Twitch, gotta hit up Twitch. Twitch is definitely the place for that. There's some, for sure.
We've lost Jesus
not
in our
enough.
church. I don't think you guys are preaching the right gospel. I don't feel like I'm spiritually growing when I'm there. I don't feel like I have a chance to be a mentor or an influence on new or younger Christians and do my purpose of bringing them into the faith stronger, etc. Like, that's not the concern we're hearing. We're hearing, hey, that thing that worked for me, the one true benefit of religion, the community part, that's not as good as it used to be. So I'm just going to stay at home where it's convenient. And in this way, it shows me, and I'm making a generalization here, and this doesn't apply to all Christians, that so much is about feeling. I think that's like the first thing that went off in my head. What I've spent now 10 minutes probably trying to get to is, for a group of individuals that believe something, that often spout how little it has to do with our feelings, because our feelings are so easily deceived, and all of the things we've been covering lately. We've talked about this quite a bit. To turn around and be like, 40% of us just aren't digging church anymore because community is not that great, but we'll come back if you get it sorted. When you can properly serve me and make me feel good and give me a benefit to my religion or my relationship with God, then I can start checking back in. It amazes me. And there are hardcore Christians who will love this message. They're like, you're right, Brandon. These people are doing it for the wrong reasons. They're not real Christians. They've got their priorities backwards. Thank you for helping me critique them. And that's fine. But I'm not doing it on behalf of the more fervent believer. I'm saying in general, if you have a religion that is supposed to offer peace beyond all understanding, perfect objective truth, a ticket to eternal paradise, a savior who saves you from death and sin and hell, a guarantee of becoming a new creation. There's not enough proof in the pudding of all of those claims to get you to have your butt in the seat at church on Sunday morning. And the one word that is sticking out is community. I think that's extremely telling to why Christians do a lot of what they do, why Christians care about being Christian, the benefit that they're getting from it. You become part of an in-group. And it's very funny to me because these same Christians will go and talk about the importance of the Great Commission and going and telling the rest of the world and being a missionary and feeding the hungry and the widowed, which Jesus tells us is the definition of religion, and making time and spending time with people and looking at how Jesus spent his time talking with tax collectors and prostitutes, but they just take care of their own. I was just having having a conversation with a Christian friend of mine, someone I very much love and even respect, and they are having issues with a neighbor. And at one point he said, you know what, if she wasn't part of our small group, I think I just would have cut her off by now. And honestly, like, no judgment. This neighbor has a child who is extremely problematic, who is older, and who is saying and doing things that are highly inappropriate around my friend's younger children. And my friend even had the understanding of realizing that a boundary needs to exist here. Like, you know what, it's not his job to parent this kid, and if this kid is older and this is how they are and this is how they think it's okay to behave around younger people, he doesn't want that for his kids. Except for what? Well, they're in his Bible study. So he feels some kind of forced community or obligation to work past that. I think that could be very problematic for his children. He's a good dad. I know he'll be involved and take care of it. But generally speaking, letting someone you should have a healthy boundary with in because of what they believe, not good principles. Also, not taking care of someone still in your community, your actual neighbor, like Jesus tells us, because they're not in your small group or they don't believe like you, seems very much like it doesn't match up with the Christian message. So this isn't to call my friend a hypocrite. This is just saying I understand from his Christian thinking why that makes sense, but I also see how it's backwards according to the Bible and unhealthy in general in terms of being a human being. And that is what church does. But that's
all right. So I want to talk a little bit about this before he gets too far away from it. So something that's kind of interesting about this is that there's a few things here. All right. So one thing is, again, y'all, this is a different conversation. And let's say this, hopefully maybe it's an easier conversation a little bit. It's a like, this is a conversation you can have over the dinner table. This is a conversation you can have with a friend or a family member, hopefully, because it's not necessarily something that's going to lead you to like a debate, right? This isn't very debatey. Like, we're gonna debate. I mean, I guess you could debate, can Christianity survive a loss of community, but you'd be unlikely to do that with a friend. Are you going to debate the value of community? No, right? But you could like have a conversation about, you know, where, like, what gives them that sense of community, what role that plays in their life, and what role that plays in the church, or kind of wherever it goes. But again, this isn't apologetics, right? Like, of course, the guy who did the clip at the beginning, he's probably an apologist, but the people in your life who are probably the Christians you care about, the discussions we have around apologetics are probably not important to them, but the discussion of community is probably important to them. But there's the second layer here for me right now is that it's a scary thing to let stand in for morality. And even worse is when it stands in for something being true. But what he's really getting at is sort of the theological concern, which is basically the simplest way to put it is, your faith is supposed to offer you something supernatural, something magical, something bang, bang, boom. You're supposed to have a relationship with the creator of the universe. But you telling me I should make sure I get some of these cupcakes. You talking about how good the band is. You telling me y'all have a lot of fun watching Monday Night Football at the Bible study. That's not hitting. That don't feel, that don't right. That's I think that's what he's trying to hone in on. And that's something, it's subtle, but it's about what they don't say. I like how Matt Dillahunty says, faith is the excuse you give when you don't have good reasons. Why? Because if you had good reasons, you would lead with those reasons. Everything else you have good reasons for, you lead with those reasons. And it's the same thing. Gang, if I had a wishing stone under my bed, I could pull out this gray rock and I could wish upon it and it would make my ailments go away. Do you think I would tell you that I celebrate this fucking paperweight that I have? Right? Or isn't it a cool speckled gray blackish pattern? Ooh, look how hard the rock is. Right? Right? No. It's a magical fucking rock. Tell me about the goddamn magic it's done. So that's the issue here, is that they're going to the mundane. All right, but here, check out the third layer, y'all, because this is the one that's getting me. This is the one that's going to be with me after the show tonight. What if community is a cry for help? Right? Like, what if community is the way somebody describes the cage that they live within? Right? Like, it's one of those things where it's supposed to sound all good. Like, no, I'm such a part of this Christian community and I can't imagine my life without it, and everyone around me thinks like this. Right? But that's sometimes a person who's trying to say, what if I did see a way out of this, or have my doubts, or even want a way out of this? What do I do when my mother and father are both, loyal to this, and all of my extended family is loyal to this, and now now that most of my church friends, right, there's people who not being a Christian would maybe not get them fired, but definitely end any upward mobility they had in their workplace. Right? And they might just have a workplace where the boss is Christian as shit and everybody else just goes right on along with it. Right? There's a lot of people who are literally probably telling us, I can't imagine a life without this group. Because they're literally like, I don't even know where I would get the pieces to put together. Where do I go to get enough non-Christian pieces to put together to even have a life anymore? So actually, community is what's keeping them trapped. That's the shit that's gonna stick with me, y'all. All right, let's get back into this.
Sense of community overrides it. Sorry, there is a chainsaw apparently going on outside my window. Hopefully you guys cannot hear that. So what are we talking about here? Am I just rambling, or have I made any sense? I think that the point of me bringing up the example from my friend is that Christians do rightly value the amazing benefit of community that they get. And when they don't have it, apparently there's not that much else to keep them going. I've seen other reports that tithes and offerings are way down when it comes to online church versus in person. That is very telling to me that says 100%, and not for everyone, but on whole, on average, people give less when there's not that person next to you watching, when there's not that accountability of the plate being passed in front of you or having to walk by the offering bucket in the back as you walk out the door. And so I think what this is showing me, like that example, this example, is that if it were really about the truth of the claim, a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, the Holy Spirit witnessing inside of you, why would not seeing your buddies on Sunday change whether you're willing to go into that building and worship God or not? Why would not having the emotional cues that typically make your giving go down, if you have the witness of the Holy Spirit making you a new creation, that out of your abundant, undeserved, and unexplainable joy, you give because God has asked you to and because you believe in the mission? I think what I'm trying to say is it seems awfully man-made when these factors that should not be factors from an all-powerful, real God can have such human effects on the average Christian. Does that make sense? Maybe a better way of saying it is starting from scratch. What would you expect the one true church to be like? Of all the religions in the world and in history, of all the different cultures, all the different ways that people have worshiped or come together under a similar foundational belief, if there's one that is actually true, where that God is showing up, where his Spirit is coming upon the people, where they do have the witness inside of them of the actual Spirit of God. Can I tell you what I think I would find? I think I would find churches with zero abuse. Zero. Well, Brandon, that's an unrealistic expectation. These people are still human. They're still going to sin. I forget who I was watching. It was a comedian that was talking about, I think it was Chris Rock. Sorry, I'm going somewhere with this. He made a joke about police brutality and how the police always say, oh, it's just a couple bad apples. And his point was some jobs shouldn't have bad apples. And at first I thought, well, that's kind of a ridiculous statement. And then he goes and he says, like airplane pilots. And I thought, no, that's true. You don't get to just have a pilot who has a bad day, who's a bad apple, and decides to crash the plane and kill hundreds of people. Some jobs don't get to have bad apples. A priest or preacher should be one of them. Almost every single week, and probably multiple times a week if I was looking harder, I see stories about someone in a position of leadership inside of a church that has sexually assaulted a minor, almost without fail. What are the excuses here? And this could be its own video, but my point is, if this is the one true God and his church, his body, his bride is in direct, actual communication with the creator of the universe who wants a personal relationship with these individuals, and there's power in their gathering, and there is anointing in the leadership. These are things we learn from the Bible. If that were actually
All right, but see, we should talk about it, y'all. We should talk about it. This is crazy because look, people are people, but this is the point. Like people will tell you, it's sort of like, look, I've worked in ministry, okay, so it is what it is, and I come from a long line of ministers, but they do take on the esteem of being a man or woman of God, right? And we talk about people losing potentially their sense of community if they're not at church. For a lot of people, they're also gonna potentially lose esteemed position, right? People in my family are evangelist this, bishop that, minister this, right? They have titles, they have prestige, there's a lot of social benefits that come with having a position in one of these organizations. But where's the fucking outrage? For people to sort of take on the power and the influence over others that comes with those positions, and then use it to victimize children. This is again another thing that I have to admit I didn't spend enough time thinking about as a Christian, but kind of makes me sick when I think about it as a non-believer now, because I was aware, as most people are, that these things are happening, and we don't care as believers. You just it doesn't again, it's like another generational sort of culture shifting event that happens, and most believers just keep on keeping on. And the thing that makes it terrible now is that the same people turn around, and it's we've got to protect the children from the trans, right? And all these cultural issues where it's talk about who's a groomer and save the children, and we've got to don't forget, we got to roll back Roe v. Wade, because again, we've got to save the children. But actual radio silence on the abuse of children. It's just kind of scary. Like, you're just like, really? Like, and I don't mean that like metaphorically. I mean, like, I'm scared, y'all. Like, I'm scared of these people. Like, it's scary because what does our cognition mean? Right? Like, what does it mean? Like, what is the point? Who cares? Right? Like, we say that human beings are smart. Why? They can read, they can write, they can figure out 2 + 2 is 4, 5 × 5 is 25. Okay, that's great. But when you're like, let's pass laws, determine who we elect for office, and make actual public policy based on saving the children from these people over here who are not hurting anybody. Oh, and by the way, fuck those children. And then these people over here who actually harm children, have you scheduled your latest house visit so that Father so and so can come through and bless your child? Right? You're just like, what's going on? Like, it's like Uncle Bobby said, like, we gotta let the faithful know, look, you have every right in the world to believe what you want. It doesn't make what you believe right. Kitty table with all that shit. Kitty table. Because you cannot stay over here with the rest of us who have to make grown folks decision about how to handle our common affairs. It's outrageous. And I don't talk about it a lot. I don't want to pretend to be an expert on the issue and all of that type of stuff. But again, we have serious conflict going on in the Middle East. And we can't seem to get on the same page about how unacceptable it is to blow people up. Scary. Human beings are scary. Not play scary. Scary.
Actually true, and we didn't have all the excuses running in our head, I would expect no priest or pastor to ever molest a child. I would expect that no church officials ever take money out of the funds. I would expect that they all preach the exact same message in terms of at least, what is salvation? Is there a hell? Is it just annihilation? How can I know if I'm saved? Is this a sin or is this not a sin? What is the difference between the Old and New Testament? What does the New Covenant really mean for us? What is the purpose of communion? Is baptism important to salvation? And on and on and on. I would expect they all have the exact same answer, because they would all be getting the same message from the Holy Spirit, and they would all be doing doing that because they'd be praying together. And we're told about the power of 2 or 3 gathering under God's will for guidance and wisdom, it will be granted. So I probably should have started the video with this little thought experiment. What would you actually expect from a church if all of this were true? And I think then it should continue on to what you would expect from the people who attend the church, that they attend no matter how they feel, that they attend no matter what the church has given them back, that they give consistently every single time despite what is going on in their life, because they actually believe that their God will actually take care of them, and he actually does, and he actually has in the past, so they don't have to fear it. It doesn't have to be a guess. It doesn't have to be them being shamed in the future for not having enough faith. This God would do what he says he would do, and thus people would actually see the fruit of that, and they would do what they are supposed to do, and we would have a very, very different thing. But what do we have? We have a building where people get together, and it used to be pretty good, and there's some things that have changed, like technology and COVID, that have made it maybe less than, maybe not exactly what it was for some people at some churches. Sometimes have all of your caveats, and so they take that and they say, you know what, it's really not worth it to me to go in. I'm not going to go in as much, and these churches are dying by the thousands on a weekly basis, and the other ones are stagnant and not growing, and eventually will die as well. That tells me they were just taking their turn on the carousel of religion in the history of this world, and like all false religions, eventually their time will come, and we might see some death throes, and we might see some believers and some churches grow, and unfortunately I think they will be even more radical and fundamental because they think they're fighting the good fight of the end times, and that's terrifying. But in general, this religion will continue to dissolve. That's what it's doing. That's the trajectory. Yeah, Brandon, what the Bible says it's going to do that. The Bible also says it won't. There are two very big distinctions. You can go watch Christians fight about it all day, about what happens at the end times. Do we actually grow up in number until the rapture, or do we start whittling down because there's so much sin and wickedness and deceitfulness in man's heart? So a lot of you are looking at the trajectory of the Christian church and saying, yep, just on par. This is what's got to happen. And you can think whatever you want. But what it is a clear sign of is, just like there's less and less Zeus temples until there's just none, except for historical relics, sometime the Christian church will be that, because it's a false religion and it can only hold on for so long. But a real religion with a real God and a real plan for his church and his people, for the body of Christ, that would not be subject to these extremely human conditions and singular human feelings. You can think I'm asking too much, that I expect too much, and if you think that way, I bet you just have a lifetime of excuses about why this God doesn't measure up to what you would have thought this God would have measured up to, and you've settled. I really believe many
Ron DeSantis continues to show that
Ron
for the
DeSantis.
Christian in direct actual communication with the creator of the universe, who wants a personal relationship with these individuals, and there's power in their gathering, and there is anointing in the leadership. These are things we learned from the Bible. If that were actually true and we didn't have all the excuses running in our head, I would expect no priest or pastor to ever molest a child. I would expect that no church officials ever take money out of the funds. I would expect that they all preach the exact same message in terms of at least, what is salvation? Is there a hell? Is it just annihilation? How can I know if I'm saved? Is this a sin or is this not a sin? What is the difference between the Old and New Testament? What does the New Covenant really mean for us? What is the purpose of communion? Is baptism important to salvation? And on and on and on. I would expect they all have the exact same answer, because they would all be getting the same message from the Holy Spirit, and they would all be doing that because they'd be praying together. And we're told about the power of 2 or 3 gathering under God's will for guidance and wisdom, it will be granted. So I probably should have started the video with this little thought experiment. What would you actually expect from a church if all of this were true?
All right, so I just want to say this real quick. So one of the things I think that's useful about this conversation about, oh my goodness, I can't believe I'm about to actually do some counter apologetics. But look, you can use this conversation about community to actually introduce the outsider test of faith, right? Because while people do have a powerful sense of community, and that's very important to them, and they have powerful, personal transformation because of their faith and in whatever they believe, so does all the people who have the beliefs that they think are wrong. Right. And you could ask, and again, this is conversations you can have with real regular people. Right. Do you think that Muslims and Jehovah's Witnesses and all of these other people have powerful festivals? Do you think they have a powerful sense of community? Do you think that they, have a meaningful sense of oneness and these fictive kinships, right? Treat each other as like brothers and sisters or whatever. Do they not feel blessed by their gods, their lords, their saviors? Um, and I think that's something people will hopefully answer truthfully, and hopefully get them to think. Um, this is a tough one, and I know people probably take this out of context, but whatever. I don't want to come down on people for having a sense of community or for wanting community, but I do think it's problematic if people use community as a shield to not be challenged. And that's what I see happening that's problematic. And it's more about us in two regards. One, we have to start to make our own communities better so that we're in a more thriving place ourselves, right? We claim we can do all the community things churches do, but unfortunately we don't see enough of it. So it's kind of hard. It's like if you build it, they'll come, but you gotta build it first. The other way is the way in which we're allowing people to use their sense of community as a shield. Because again, it shouldn't be a cover for a coercive organization. I know it's a tired example, but that was one good thing that came from the Daryl Dawkins or Daryl Davis interviews or whatever, is that he showed sort of the camaraderie he gained with KKK members. There's a lot of problems with that whole deal, but one of the insightful things was you did get to see the friendly side of the KKK, where they're all sitting around grilling hot dogs, chit-chatting, and eating pie. You recognize they have a sense of community and a strong sense of community, but you don't give a shit because it's the KKK. And you know that they do bad shit. And you want to protect people from them. This is the point I'm getting to with religion. Another thing about community is we have to start to ask a very important question. Let me go a little bigger for this. Which community? Because a lot of times what I hear is that a believer's sense of belonging is more important than the problems that they cause for marginalized people. So, like for me, it comes to a point where it's like, I hate to say it, but like I care. I shouldn't say I hate to say it. I'm happy to say it. I care more, right, about the LGBTQ community than I do about a sense of community built around a myth that causes people to discriminate against LGBTQ people. And this is where the rubber meets the road for me. And it gets to be very complicated. Cause like, let's take the Methodist Church, for instance, right? They're having splitsies over whether they should be allied or not. The people who are on the side of we need to be allies, that's the motherfuckers we gonna throw hands with. Line them up. What side of this war y'all on? We gonna be on the same goddamn side. And you're gonna be like, but Jay, they just want to make LGBTQ people popes and ministers, and but yeah, we'll talk about that later. It's motherfucking lives on the line right now. It's motherfucking sense of belonging alive, belonging in public, just belonging anywhere. Right? My wanting these people to belong anywhere is more important than your sense of belonging in this little synagogue or whatever you got going here on Sunday or Saturday, whatever your little holy day is. And so this is where things get tough for us, because there's a lot of people, again, who maybe on the other side of the spectrum in terms of beliefs or whatever, but they're really kind of with us when it comes to the rubber meeting the road. And there's a lot of people that are holding us back and are doing so because of a sense of community and allegiance to the people that are the problem. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I have a very difficult time telling who's who. So how might that work out? You might have people in a conservative ass religious organization who are trying to win the fight from the inside. You know, the Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney's of the Southern Baptist Convention. Right? Like that's their crew, that's who they are, but they're trying to right the ship. Now, if I were them, I'd jump ship, but I'm not them, right? So that's how they get down, but they are trying to help. Then you've got people that we know and love that we think are progressive, cool Christians. They say they're allies, but they actually go to a conservative ass congregation and they're pumping hella money in the said conservative ass congregation. And that conservative ass congregation is turning right around and fucking our people all the way up. Man, that's what I'm saying. This community thing, which community? Shit gets complicated.
And I think then it should continue on to what you would expect from the people who attend the church, that they attend no matter how they feel, that they attend no matter what the church has given them back, that they give consistently every single time despite what is going on in their life, because they actually believe that their God will actually take care of them, and he actually does, and he actually has in the past, so they don't have to fear it. It doesn't have to be a guess. It doesn't have to be them being shamed in the future for not having enough faith. This God would do what he says he would do, and thus people would actually see the fruit of that, and they would do what they are supposed to do, and we would have a very, very different thing. But what do we have? We have a building where people get together, and it used to be pretty good, and there's some things that have changed, like technology and COVID, that have made it maybe less than, maybe not exactly what it was for some people at some churches. Sometimes have all of your caveats, and so they take that and they say, you know what, it's really not worth it to me to go in. I'm not going to go in as much, and these churches are dying by the thousands on a weekly basis, and the other ones are stagnant and not growing, and eventually will die as well. that tells me they were just taking their turn on the carousel of religion in the history of this world. And like all false religions, eventually their time will come. And we might see some death throes, and we might see some believers and some churches grow. And unfortunately, I think they will be even more radical and fundamental because they think they're fighting the good fight of the end times, and that's terrifying. But in general, this religion will continue to dissolve. That's what it's doing. That's the trajectory. Yeah, Brandon, what the Bible says it's going to do that. The Bible also says it won't. There are two very big distinctions. You can go watch Christians fight about it all day about what happens at the end times. Do we actually grow up in number until the rapture, or do we start whittling down because there's so much sin and wickedness and deceitfulness in man's heart? So a lot of you are looking at the trajectory of the Christian church and saying, yep, just on par. This is what's got to happen. And you can think whatever you want. But what it is a clear sign of is just like there's less and less Zeus temples until there's just none, except for historical relics, sometime the Christian church will be that, because it's a false religion and it can only hold on for so long. But a real religion with a real God and a real plan for his church and his people, for the body of Christ, that would not be subject to these extremely human conditions and singular human feelings. You can think I'm asking too much, that I expect too much. And if you think that way, I bet you just have a lifetime of excuses about why this God doesn't measure up to what you would have thought this God would have measured up to, and you've settled. I really believe many Christians have settled. They defend it, they believe in it, they still think it's lovely, they think it's powerful. Many people believe they've really been healed. Many people believe that they are really talking to the creator of the universe in their quiet times. But we have had to make apologetics. We've had to settle for this version of God, an invisible version of God, a God that only talks to some people some of the time, a God that only answers prayers at the same rate as happenstance or chance, a God that makes no indistinguishable claims from other gods throughout time and history, a God with no additional proof than other gods throughout time and history, a message that is obviously broken up into so many different beliefs and denominations that we have to start blaming a new source like the devil and confusion and deceit. If you really believed what a all-powerful God would do.
Gang, he talking about that mundane faith. That mundane faith. I was thinking about this. What is it? What do people mean when they try to get smart but stay in the faith? When you start having those people who, and again, I used to be one of these people, so no shade, but you kind of got your nose up in the air. You know, I'm not one of those fundamentalists. I'm not a biblical literalist. You like that? You like that? Can you tell I watch too much Christian versus atheist YouTube? A biblical literalist. People don't talk like that. Right. But what does it mean when you get away from that? I'll give you an example. When I was a Christian, I believed that God worked through natural means. Now, those of you that are pro-science, you might be thinking, great. That means you found a faith that was compatible with science. Yeah, it was great. It was wonderful. Until you realize what science actually is. Science is forming natural explanations of natural phenomena. So if you're not a young Earth creationist, okay, you're not one of those people who thinks all of those stories in the Bible are literally, I mean, you don't literally believe in Noah's Ark or the Garden of Eden or create. You believe everything. Okay. So then you just accept that the world works as though everything works according to natural means. You can reliably model the universe without any supernatural forces, and it works out. And then you turn around and say, yeah, that's my God. Do people not see the problem with that? Your God works as though your God is not working. And that's okay. The all-powerful creator of the universe, who could have gone bang, bang, boom, and given us modern people. Just snap my fingers and boom, there's out comes people. Instead gave us billions of years of evolution and a family of closely related apes who literally throw turds from trees at lions and shit below them. We are glorified monkeys up in this bitch. Which is exactly what you would expect if there was no fucking God at all. Won't he do it? I mean, come on. But gang, that hits a lot of people. You understand what I'm saying to you? It's a lot of people who want to smile up in your face and say, "I know I'm one of the smart Christians. I don't take those stories too seriously." Okay, but you are a Christian, right? Which means you think a Jew died and rose, a Jew was tortured by the Romans at the behest of the Jews, chilled in a grave for like 3 days just to make sure he was dead, just to prove a point. And then he popped up out the grave, ascended himself to heaven, and he's coming back again to judge the living and the dead. You believe that? Or is that a metaphor too? Metaphor for what? Then you get the motherfuckers who take it, but no, I believe it's bigger than that. It's a more universal idea. I believe God is in everyone. God is in you. God is in, bro. I don't hate to tell you, I don't mean to tell you all my business, but I've recently moved my bowels, and I can tell you that my shit in fact does stink. Okay. Yeah, if I leave something on the stove too long, that motherfucker will burn, and ain't a goddamn thing I can do about it. Trust me, there is nothing magical or supernatural about me. Why do we even let people think I'm talking y'all, I'll kick it to you straight as a Christian gang. Right, like we used to be Christians. You tell me God no. Right, that's like these things we let people say, they're just so like you think if I had God living in, I had God powers in me, I'd have to worry about whether or not I was going to get a headache after I had too much to drink? That sound like God to you? But I'm just saying, like there's a lot of this stuff that we really let people claim to believe in without really questioning them. Like, is that really what you believe in? Do you not realize how out there that belief is? And the effect of that is that it's always those other people, right? It's always those Christians over there are the fundamentalists, those Christians over there are the crazy evangelicals, those Christians over there are the Christian nationalists, those Christians over there are the young earth creationists. Those Christians over there are the bigots and the homophobes. But that's your book though, right? Right? Then they're, yeah, well, I'm a Bible believing Christian. I believe in Jesus of the Bible. Yes, I believe the Bible is God's word. Yes, it is his holy word. And it tells of his son who came and he died for us. And that was the ultimate sacrifice and the ultimate example of love. And well, yes, and certainly I have hope that after this life, all y'all crazy. Stop trying to play me, man.
You wouldn't expect to be able to be deceived in your own mind by the mortal enemy through the same avenue that very God is supposed to speak to you through. What a ridiculous concept. So I think Christians have had to settle for the realities of the non-existence of their God while still believing that he does indeed exist. And in lieu of all those supernatural things that don't happen to them, when the good things like community start to fade, I think that it makes a great deal of sense that we are very quickly going to see the religion fade. But that shouldn't be the case of a real God. So I know that this one was a bit messier. I'm going to try to sum this up in like 1 or 2 sentences. I'll play it as a preview at the beginning so you know what you're looking forward to and what we're trying to arrive at. If the biggest takeaway for the Christian in their religion is community, this man-made created thing that makes them feel good, that the lack of that community would lead people to leaving the church, I think that is saying something extremely telling about the lack of the supernatural within the church. If you settled long ago for, well, Christianity works because look at this community, because all of God's bigger claims didn't pan out, I think that the end result is obvious. This religion is like all of the others. It's a group of people seeking benefit, seeking good feeling, regardless of the truth of the situation. They may very well believe, but their belief has not equaled what was promised. And instead of calling the promise maker on the bad promise, they blame leadership or each other or sin or the devil. A whole lot of feelings for something that's supposed to be about the objective truth of Christ. That's it. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. We have Lamentations coming up this Thursday, another wonderful Sunday episode for you. And until then, keep thinking. I wanted to personally thank my top tiers of support, my Iconoclasts, GVI, Jacob, Jason, Joe, Oliver, and Sean, my humanist heroes, Jerry.
All right, that one hit hard for me, gang. That one was worth it. That one was worth it. Like, again, this is what I think really matters to so many of the Christians in our life. It's this sense of community. This is the conversation we should be having. Again, a lot of the other stuff we get into in apologetics, I got to be honest with you, I sort of see it as we're extraordinarily motivated former believers. Usually because of the intensity of our beliefs or the system, the belief system that we came up with. Like there was no half stepping, right? It was all in or all out. And so you were all in and now we're all out. But essentially I think we're still Bible nerds, right? Like, we're those religious kids who grew up to not be religious. And so we are still interested in those things. Like, we're interested in studying the Bible, we're interested in debates, we're interested in theology, we're interested in philosophy, like we're interested in world and comparative religions and studying other religions and religious history, right? So I sort of think of it as a lot of those things we get into, they just like reflect our common interest, and they're usually productive because they're things that we're interested in, and they help us think about our own journey or our experience in useful ways. But I think when it comes to something that's just going to be pragmatic and practical, to have a conversation about this stuff with actual people in our lives, I think sort of starting with their sense of community, the role of community, how important community is to their faith, I think that seems like a much more reasonable route with most people. There's also some real challenges here. I think community is a harder problem. So let's say you have this ideal conversation with a believer and they go, yeah, I really believe that, like, yeah, maybe it's not gonna happen. But let's just say they're just, oh yeah, it turns out I am just a Christian because of that sense of community and belonging I get, and I don't really have good reasons to believe that faith or whatever it is, right? Like, are they on the road to leaving? Maybe, but like maybe not, right? We've seen so many examples. We've talked to people. We've had conversations with Christians on this channel who are like there, but that community is still so important to them. It's still such a pull that, like, awareness is the first step, but just becoming aware of it isn't gonna like change it. It's not gonna like give you an alternative community or something like that, right? So there's a hard problem there. That just understanding isn't quite sufficient. The other thing is, it's really uncomfortable to go there with people. And that's a huge problem too. I can tell you it's a lot easier to make a video about some fuckface apologist, right? It's all sorts of fuckfaces, all sorts of shooting the shit and look at his monkey ass and laughing and ridicule, having a good time at their expense. I don't know these fools, and they sound like some dumbasses. Who cares? Here to make good content for the fam. But put the old church mothers of the missionary choir at my grandmother's church in front of me. All that piss and vinegar is going to be gone. All of it. Because these are just the sweet old ladies from the church that raised me and always looked out for me and stuff like that. And how do I go about telling them that, you know, I don't believe in their sweet Jesus fairy tales and that yeah, this community is important, but you know that doesn't make their beliefs true, right? Like it's just, it's tough. But at the same time, those are the people that are most invested in these churches a lot of times, and they're swelling the numbers. They're the church's number one resource. Without people, all these old organizations and denominations, they can't do nothing to us. So these are difficult lines to draw. Another thing I want to talk to you a little bit about is community building. There is a motivation in the faithful, even if it is just a sense of commitment to the church, and then that sense of commitment telling them they need to serve the church or be active in the church or whatever, but it motivates you to do things. That's one of the things that I've noticed here, in sort of the community we have online. It's super wonderful, but it totally depends on the motivation of the people and what they put into it. Just like a couple quick examples. If you are a person who watches YouTube lives but does not engage in the live text chat, you are missing out. You're just missing out. Like it's just a different level of participation, a different level of communication. It opens up doors to making new friends, people getting to know you getting to know who people are, all that good stuff. Do you guys know how long I watched YouTube lives and didn't talk in the chat? I can't even tell you. I made a point when people that I watched their content and they would do lives, I made a point to ignore the scrolling chat. When I started watching streamers and all that, I didn't care what was going on in the chat. I didn't watch the chat. I didn't listen to the chat. I didn't care when the streamer acknowledged the chat or said something about the chat. Chat just like was not a thing. So we can't make somebody pay attention to the chat, but we can just say, hey, like if you do, right, it's up to all of us who are active in the chat. Like we went through that process of ourselves. For me, it was like I started watching the chat, noticed the chat said some funny stuff or that it made the stream engaging, especially like just during breaks. All right, I would notice like when the streamer would take a break, like they'd say be right back, or they'd go to the restroom, or they'd just be sitting there changing games or at a loading screen or whatever. I'd read the chat because I was bored. Chat's kind of interesting. Then you start watching channels regularly, you start noticing, oh, I see names. I see certain names in certain channels regularly. And then sometimes I see those names in other channels regularly. And then I notice that people who recognize each other's names in chat tend to acknowledge each other. Like, oh, hey, so-and-so, hey, so-and-so, hey, so-and-so. Light bulb goes off. Those people know each other. They're used to seeing each other and interacting in the chat, right? And then for a while, then you just start kind of sporadically throwing little comments in the chat from time to time, like may or may not acknowledge them or start a conversation, but it just goes gradually. And then at some point you just end up in a place where like, yeah, this community is really important. Man, made a bunch of friends. Can't imagine my life without it. Mostly started because I started meeting people in chats. I don't know what to tell you, right? But it's just an example of how the sense of community that is available to people is in a sense commensurate with the effort they put into that community. And so in our case, somebody has to be live. There has to be a stream or at least an upload, because a lot of us interact in comment sections too, for videos that aren't live. And then, we kind of have to do all those things. Like, we have to show up, we have to, actually get to be somewhere we can type, and, the whole thing. I noticed the same thing about being in the church. I got a lot out of being in the church, but a lot of that was not just being part of the worship team, because that's a lot of it too. Like, when you're the worship team, guess what? You're at church early and you stay late every time, and you get to know everybody. A lot of the friendships you make in the church are just people you're around during setup and tear down and sound check. There's a whole different crew. That was actually one of the crazy things about church. I'll give you an example. This is a perfect example. A lot of people think like being on a work team is fun. It is. It's a ton of fun, but it's also a lot of work, right? And so one of the things that was crazy about the last church I played at on a regular basis, was we were what's called a load in, load out church, which means we really had church in a school. And so every service we had to set everything up, and then when service was over, we had to tear everything down. So the days we had service, we had to be there at I think 6:30 in the morning or something was the call time. And gang, that's a life changing call time, right? Because every Sunday you have to be up at the ass crack of dawn to get there on time. Maybe they have to be there at 7 something, so I have to get up at 6:30, right? But it changes everything. You have to then go to bed early. So your Saturday nights, you don't have normal Saturday nights anymore. You don't stay up late on Saturday. You got to get up early tomorrow. Crazy early. Saturday's the earliest night you have to go to bed. But what was crazy is over time, you come to like that. There's a certain camaraderie of the huge team. First of all, it's more fun, right? Because if you go to a church where you don't have to load in every night, like a permanent installation, then you just show up. You just show up as the band, everything's set up, you do a sound check, you do service. So the team is not that big, right? It's like just the musicians, the singers, the worship team, whoever else, the pastor, and you're done. Sound team, and you're good. When you have to load in and load out, you have to have this whole team of volunteers, because you have to set up the curtains and the rafters and set out the tables for the tickets and the screens and everything. So there's a big ass team of people. So, right. And so that becomes part of the groove and part of the community you build. I'm part of this big ass team of people that has to get up to the ass crack of dawn every Sunday just to get here and set this up, and then we have to stay late and tear it all down. But it becomes part of your community. It becomes part of it. So there's a huge bonus. It's like you guys are on stage and you've got stuff, but you've got to make that sacrifice. You've got a thing to do. You got a role in this community, but you've got to have a little bit of discipline to do the thing. And I think every community is like that. And I feel the same way about this community. Like it's a big part of the reason I stream, is to stay connected to you guys. It's a big part of the reason we made Gather, right? And you know, it's been a journey we're on, but a lot of the ideas were the same. Like we tried to start to have like regular meetings on Sundays, right? The idea being like, if you think about it, in this community, we never have a scheduled time for us all to actually get together and talk to each other. Right? The mind blown, right? Like, this is a crazy community. We've built so much community out here. It's wild. But mostly we just subscribe to the same YouTube channels, and then when they like go live, it's like, yeah, we like see each other in the same lives. But their shows, right? And their streams, and the people are interacting with the panelists and the host and the topic. It's not a time for people in this community to just get together and talk to each other. And so it was, you know, it's a cool idea to like try to have a time for that and make time for that. And YouTube streams they're interactive, right? But they're one way. They're one way. Like I get to see, you guys get to see me, but I don't get to see you. You guys get to hear me, I don't get to hear you. And so, you know, communities do this differently. Some communities have Discords. We have a Discord. Discord's great, right? Discord's like the next level, right? It's like a way to stay connected with people and like have your own conversations and share content, and we share live videos, and you know, we have a lot of interaction on Discord. But you have to join the Discord. You know, we always say join the Discord. I'm sure you guys hear tons of streamers say join my Discord. Discords are fucking awesome. You know, I totally leveled up my ability to make friends online and participate in online spaces once I finally, you know, decided to start joining Discords and interacting with people on Discords, and it was great. You know, I used to do the thing where like you can jump into voice channels on Discords and kind of hang out with people and do hangouts that way. It's kind of like being in a Zoom meeting, right? But then when we discovered Gather, it was like, oh, this is really cool. It gives like a real-time virtual headquarters and stuff like that. But yeah, but people have to join it. But I think for those of us that have, we really enjoy it. We really enjoy, you know, like right now, Nitty and Lena have been backstage and Gather kind of hanging out and having their own conversation, and Nitty's on camera. I can see Nitty reacting to things I say and stuff like that. So it's super fun. Yeah, you know, there's a link in the description if you want to join. I'm probably gonna I'll show you guys how to do that before we wrap up here, actually. So let me do that now while I'm talking about Gather. And then we'll wrap up. All right, so let me figure out something to share. All right, we're gonna share that. Cool. Go over here. All right, so this is, we're just gonna take this from like if you're at the YouTube page. Let's see. Let's just get this entire window. All right, so if you're at the YouTube page, you can click on a live. This is the current live. There's my stream. All right, you can go into more. So you open up description, and then right here, it's like the third thing down, says link up with the gang. That's always our Gather link. You click that. It's a tiny URL just so that YouTube doesn't cut off the link. You come up with your avatar, you name it. This is the Myron. I use this account for Myron Bot. You check your vocal device, your camera. Here I can show. This will be the screen behind me. But yeah, you don't have to have your camera and mic on, but that's how you check it if you want to talk to people. Join the gathering. You move around with your arrow keys. You interact with things using the X button. This is just like we've got a playlist. We've got a stoner playlist here at the Bong. There's a lot of stuff, but this is our little virtual world. You can see Lena's here. You can see Steph's here. Nitty's here. This is the normal Gather gang. This is who's usually here. I think Nitty's actually watching the stream too, so that's cool. But this is our solo virtual HQ. And I will show you guys more about Ghetto sometime. There's all sort, you can share your screen, so we do a lot of that in here. Like a lot of times when we're working, we'll just share a screen. There's the video we're just watching, right? So now people in Gather can see that video. All right. So it's kind of like using Zoom or Discord, but with like an animated actual world, and you have little private rooms and stuff. Oh, Wayne, look, Wayne came in. Wayne's gonna do some racing. So that's the one thing we really like about Gather. People stream different stuff. You actually have individual volume control, so I can adjust how loud, how much of Wayne's screen I'm getting when he's gaming and stuff like that. So sometimes like 3 or 4 different people will be sharing different things. You can pick and choose what you want to watch. So if like I wanted to just talk to Nitty, I can make Nitty big, and I could mute the screen so I'm not hearing anything. So you actually have a lot of control over how you interact with people. And then there are actually private areas. So there's all these, you could just go into a different room with somebody and have a private conversation with them. This is actually our virtual office. Most of us have cubicles. So this is actually my little desk. See, it says Jay's desk. So you'd see a lot of us have our desk here. It's Myronbot's desk. Whose desk? Let's show off somebody's desk. Whose desk is this? This is UC Love's desk. Spends a lot of time on her desk. I think Steph's desk is over. I'm not remembering. It's right here. It's his desk. Stephanie's desk. There we go. But yeah, it's our little virtual hangout. Definitely click that link. Definitely come hang out with us. All right, but why'd I show you guys that? Right, because that is something that allowed us to like build community and actually spend time with each other when we're not online, right? So it's amazing that we've been able to build community on YouTube. YouTube is a video sharing platform, but it's also a social media platform. And so our community is much heavier into using it like a social media platform than a lot of other users are. But in order for us to interact with each other, somebody has to go live, somebody has to put on a show, then you've got to get in the live chat, right? And so a lot of times you just want to hang out with the community and there's nobody live. So sometimes this is like a content desert. There's nobody live, there's no new videos. And so it's hard to find the community, but we're always in Gather. And so because of that, you know, like I work in Gather. I use it as a virtual office. Sometimes Steph and Nitty, a bunch of us will be in there working and doing our own thing. So it forms like a base. Like it's all, you always have access to it. It could be middle of the night, early in the morning. And it just gives us a place to build community intentionally. So yeah, that's why we did that. But again, you know, people just we have to do more. And so I just think it's great for us to encourage each other to find community and be active in communities and be intentional about it. That is something I learned working at a church and being heavily involved in church that I've tried to keep in my life outside of church. And I think that's like it, right? Like that's kind of it. It's like be more intentional about community, think about what you could do to be more involved in the community, and then do those things, right? And sometimes doing those things will require a little bit of effort, or doing something different, or you know, learning a new routine or something like that. But it's a need that we all need. It's a need that we all need. It's a need that we all have, that I think we can definitely meet outside the confines of church. All right, so look, we made it. That's going to do it for me. This was a absolutely wonderful time. There's a whole bunch of people, and there's like 7 people in Gather now. So good to see people hopping in. And again, it's not just for after shows, just anytime. I'm always in Gather. It's always a great way to find me. If you want to just have a chat during the day, or you're stressed, you had a bad day, kind of want to unload or unwind, You can always find us and gather. But yeah, thank you all so much for showing up to the stream. I really appreciate it. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're not, and turn on those notifications. And oh my goodness, please share this channel with people who you think would be interested in the content. That's always a huge help. If you are watching later, please leave us a comment down in the comment section. All right, I love you guys. Thank you all so much for showing up. I'll see you next time. Said I'm gone.